There's a real possibility that come next summer, Matt Freese is the starting goalkeeper for the U.S. men's national team. And I can't believe I'm saying that right now. But the world is strange.
What is the U.S.'s last signature win?
I hate to break it to you. Nobody gives a crap how this team plays next summer as long as they win. Spitting is a vile and despicable and disrespectful act.
If it's Mike Tyson, I'd rather he spit on me than punch me.
Hello, sunshine. I'm Alexi, Lalas, and welcome to the State of the Union podcast, where we look at the beautiful game on and off the field through the lens of red, white, and blue-colored glasses. This show, we'll be talking, U.S. men's national team friendly preview. It is upon us. World Cup tickets, Columbus with Pochettino, Inter Miami spitting mad, a World Cup qualifying, World Cup visitors, catfishing, Dallas Cowboys, and so much more. But first, join me as always, my friend, my colleague, my guiding light, David Mosse, a soccer savant and a Fox Soccer researcher and writer extraordinaire. Mosse, how you doing on this? What are we looking at? September 3rd in the year 2025.
I'm doing well. Welcome back. Did you remember how to get to the Fox lot?
It was a little weird coming in. I have been gone for a long time. Incredible travels and tales through this summer, but now I am back. My daughter's already started school. My son started yesterday, and so we're back into the thick of things when it comes to school, and we're back into the thick of things when it comes to being in the same studio together. Thank you to you and everybody behind the camera who made it happen over the last month plus now that I have been on the road, but it's nice to be back in studio with you. My friend, have you watched anything or seen anything or want to talk about anything?
I am knee-deep in this Dallas Cowboys Netflix documentary chronicling the 90s Cowboys, Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin, etc. I'm not a Cowboys fan, but it is very compelling. 8 episodes. I'm through 5. I can't wait to watch the remaining ones over the next couple days.
Well, we oftentimes talk about super clubs, if you will. And the aspect of a super club, regardless of what sport it is that as many people tune in because they don't like them as like them, and they hate watch, and that would be certainly a Dallas Cowboys types of things. But they also generate incredible amount of narratives. We'll actually talk about, from an MLS perspective, that type of thing that's going on. But it's keeping your interest even though you're not a Dallas Cowboy fan.
Absolutely. Highly recommended.
I might have to check that out. There is a crazy type of documentary over there on Netflix called Unknown Number, the high school catfish, about this small town in the north of Michigan that there's a small high school, and I'm not going to give it all away, but it gets into the not the importance, the impact that social media has, that technology has in the form of phones for these kids. And then it just goes completely off the rails in a catfishing and just a nutty type of story that thankfully ended up okay, but still there was plenty of damage along the way. And I recommend it because you think it's one thing and it just goes in a completely different direction. But it just shows how you never quite know who your friends are, who your family is. And certainly when it comes to the anonymity that the internet and our devices afford us oftentimes, you never can tell where those messages are coming from. So I'm setting that up for people to watch it. But I definitely recommend it. 2 thumbs up out there. Should we light this candle, my friend?
Let's do it.
Where shall we start?
As you mentioned, an international window is upon us. The U.S. men's national team has 2 games. On Saturday, they will face South Korea in Harrison, New Jersey. Then on Tuesday, it will be Japan in Columbus, Ohio. We will do live post-game shows after each of those matches. I'm hearing rumors that on Saturday, Stu Holden might be joining us, which is exciting.
All right.
Some roster news. Cristian Roldan has been added fresh off his Leagues Cup triumph with Seattle. So that makes 24 players now, 13 from MLS. So Pochettino fulfilling his MLS quota and making his paymaster Don Garber happy.
Yes, they're selling out of tinfoil when it comes to the American soccer nation out there. Look, as to preface this as we go into this window, I think that there are a lot of people, and I think I would even include myself here, that are a little confused as to how we should approach this window in terms of assessing what's going on. We know that Pochettino has, in the selections that he had made and the way that he has talked about it, already kind of said, I'm still looking at players. But we also know that the World Cup is barreling down the tracks. We have, after this, another 4, let's say 8 games, and even that's debatable in terms of friendlies before the World Cup. So it is right around the corner. And I know there's a lot of folks out there that have been looking at this saying, shouldn't we be much more focused in on who the players are? But it looks like this is going to be yet another assessment for Pochettino and company with this group of players.
So we had you identify 3 burning questions heading into this window.
Okay, so number one, and it's going to go to goalkeeping, which is something that we have talked about, let's be honest, all cycle. Matt Turner, to his credit, is now playing consistently back in some place that he knows in New England. That's great. However, he's not on this roster. And that's a little bit strange, given who he is and what he has done, and that he was the goalkeeper for the last World Cup, although it's certainly fair if you're talking about how he has not played. But you got Matt Freese, Roman Salentano, and Jonathan Klinsmann. Jonathan Klinsmann and Roman Salentano, no caps for the national team. Matt Freese obviously started this summer and looks to be now like the number one, and that's with a question mark next to it. So the goalkeeping position is still up in the air, Mosse. It is a little strange to me, I'll be honest, that Matt Freese is now in pole position. But I guess it shouldn't be strange to me, given the fact that we've talked so much about how Matt Turner has not been able to kick on. But it's just, I think it's going to, after this, these couple of games, I'll be looking at Matt Freese, who we know can save penalties, but against these 2 teams and good teams and perennial World Cup appearing teams in Japan and South Korea, I hope and I think that Matt Freese is going to get tested, and he's got to step up. But if he does, I mean, whether you believe it or not, or whether you like it or not, there's a real possibility that come next summer, Matt Freese is the starting goalkeeper for the U.S. men's national team. And I can't believe I'm saying that right now, but the world is strange.
And he will get tested in these 2 games. These are quality opponents. Sung Hyung Min is in the South Korea squad. So I agree with you. I'm very curious to see how Freese looks in goal.
Okay, so that's one question. The second question would be the players that are coming back in. And Balogun is back in. Pulisic is back in after all the craziness of the summer. Dest is back in and playing very, very well. So it's the players that are coming back in, and I guess in their case, reintegrating with the national team and trying, I guess, to get in the good graces of Pochettino. And then / the players that starred this summer. We just talked about Matt Freese, but you could talk about Diego Luna and Sebastian Berhalter and these types that kind of starred this summer. What do they look like integrating with these other players and these other very, very good players? So, for example, a Diego Luna, who had kind of had this glow up this summer, does he look even better now, surrounded by quote unquote better players? I know it's subjective, but if Pulisic is on the field with a Diego Luna, does that bring out an even better version of Diego Luna? Or is he a shrinking violet in that situation and can't keep up or can't live up to his side? I don't think that's the case, but I'm fascinated to see something like that. So that's my second one.
Yeah, it would behoove Pulisic to play well in these games, given all these summer drama. And I agree with you. I'm curious to see the dynamic with him and Luna. They shared the field during that ill-fated Nations League Final Four at SoFi. We attended both those matches, but this is going to be more reps now of them playing together. So curious to see how that looks.
And then finally, it's this team with, as we mentioned, so little time before the World Cup, playing against 2 quality opponents. And kudos to the United States Soccer Federation for scheduling these. I think that these are when you talk about Japan and South Korea, as we mentioned, perennial World Cup attendees. This is the type of team that I think, Mosse, and tell me if you agree with this. This is the type of team that potentially you could come up against. Yes, certainly in a group stage where I think the conventional wisdom is that you are as good or better than them. Or this is the type of team that you could come up against certainly in the knockout phase, because both of these teams have made it out of their groups. So there's an element of, does the score matter? Does the result matter? Well, yeah, it kind of does, specifically because these are the two teams. They're not elite teams in the world. They're not the Germanys of the world, which we definitely want to be able to compete against. But these are teams that we should expect to beat. We should expect at times to have more of the ball, but these are good tests for this team.
This is a big one for me. It's not often that the U.S. gets to play quality non-CONCACAF opposition. The few times that's happened in this cycle, it hasn't gone all that well. They lost a friendly to Germany and Hartford early in the cycle. Remember, they lost 5-1 to Colombia right before the Copa America. They did draw Brazil 1-1, but given Brazil's form at the time, that was a vastly overrated feat. They then lost to Uruguay in the Copa America, lost to Turkey and Switzerland before this most recent Gold Cup. So, yeah, I mean, they play South Korea and Japan now, Ecuador in October, Uruguay in November. We'll see who else in November and who in March. But I know it's friendlies and people can dismiss it, but it would be nice between now and the World Cup if the U.S. could notch a notable win and have that in the resume going into the World Cup. That would fill you with some confidence that they could make a run at the World Cup.
Well, to your point, Japan ranked 17th. South Korea ranked, Korea Republic ranked 23rd. And I know, we talk about the rankings and what they mean or what they don't, but that's where they are right now. You could actually argue that they could be higher ranked. And under Pochettino, who I think is also looking for a big win or maybe some big wins here. What is it? Top ranked win so far for Pochettino, 37th ranked Panama in the opening match for Poch. So I think he needs it too. Kind of proof of concept, because ultimately, I hate to break it to you, I'm not breaking it to anybody. Nobody gives a crap how this team plays next summer as long as they win. So just win, baby, and win against these types of teams. So those are some of the things that I'm looking for in this camp. There's certainly others that are justifiable and valid in terms of questions out there.
What is the U.S.'s last signature win?
I can't.
I think you might have to go back multiple cycles. I mean, obviously, if you take it back to beating Ghana in the opening match of the 2014 World Cup, because it's a World Cup and Ghana was a pretty good team.
So you think outside of CONCACAF. So
throw out all the Mexicos.
Yeah, okay, then jeez,
it's been a while, huh?
I mean, it's the World Cup then, right?
I mean, over the years, you guys, obviously going all the way back, beating Argentina 3-0 at the Copa America 95, beat Brazil in the 98 Gold Cup. The U.S. had some wins over Germany. You beat England at Foxborough. You scored off a header. So over the years, the U.S. has had some signature wins that generated headlines around the world. It's been a while since there's been one of those.
Yeah, we beat England in Foxborough a year before the World Cup.
Yeah.
And then, we used that. So having those touchstones, having those positive markers are important. This is why Pochettino, because he's kind of come so late to it, it's hard to have those. And so if you could have a couple of good things to point to, either the individual performances and certainly the team performances, that much better.
Portugal in 2002, obviously. Spain in that 2009 Confederations Cup. So if you go through the years, there have been a few that really stand out. But
it's been a while.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. All right. So should we look into the starting 11 here?
Yeah. So the way we're framing this is you've come up with the best possible starting 11 from this roster, but then you're also going to identify a couple spots where you might want to get a look at some new players.
So I look at this roster that Pochettino has called, and I know there's a lot of people scratching their head, and I think fairly so, and not a lot of people predicted that this was going to happen. And so I think, what if this was the World Cup? What if this was it? This is who Pochettino called in. Who do you play to give yourself kind of the best chance of winning? Again, you looked at the goalkeepers. Well, as much as it pains me or surprises me right now, it's going to be Matt Freese. And if he really is the number one, then you're damn right you put him in goal here. Because again, I want him to get as many potential games where he is going to be under the gun as possible. And I think that he's going to have much more action than he has had and that we saw this summer. So Matt Freese in goal. Sergiño Dest, as we mentioned, I want him at right back. I know there's talk about him playing left back. I want him at right back. And I want to see how he is physically. So far, so good from a club perspective. He's flying right now. He looks good. I want to make sure that he has that energy and that insatiable need to go forward. I know at times it's difficult, but I'm excited to see Sergiño Dest, and I want to see him on the right-hand side. And I think that's where he's best. And I think Pochettino would agree, although he might play him on the left. Chris Richards and Tim Ream. I'm putting them in right now because they have been the most successful tandem. But there's a part of me that if this is about assessing, as Pochettino has said, then I kind of want to see a Blackman in there or an Okai Banks in there, even though he's only 18 years old, because I think that's why they're in camp. And so I'm going to stick with Tim Ream in that if this was a World Cup game, but I kind of part of me wants to see a different center back come in. Chris Richards, I definitely want to see continue on. And then on the left-hand side, Max Arston. That's who we have. I mean, until Jedi is back, it's slim pickings, but he seems to like Max, and I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt and continue on here. When it comes to the midfield, I got Tyler Adams, Luca Della Torre, and Diego Luna. And, this is this is as good as it's going to get here, I think, for this midfield. Yes, Sebastian Berhalter may have a case at times, and I think he will see some time over these next two games, but that's who I'm going with. Again, we talked earlier, I want to see Diego Luna in with all these. And then up top, I mean, it's really like what we've wanted all along, and that the stars have aligned, the soccer gods have smiled upon us here. And so that's Christian Pulisic on the left, Tim Weah on the right, and Flo Balogun up top. And I think that's a pretty good 11. Again, who knows what Pochettino is going to do, but that would be my 11 if I just said I have to win this game, and that's who the starting 11 would be.
I agree with you. And also, I agree with Noah Kai Banks needing to start one of these two games. Listen, the minutes have dried up at Augsburg. He might not be anything, but you don't know. Let's get a look. It's a position of need. He's a young player coming up. It's just something different. So I'd like to see him get a start in place of Ream in one of these two games. And then up top, the Balogun-Sargent dynamic is interesting. I don't know if we should read anything into the fact that Sargent was in the original 22 and Balogun was a late add. Does that tell us something about the pecking order going into this window? Maybe not. But, they're both, by the way, coming off good weekends at club level. Sargent scored both goals for Norwich in their 2-0 away win over Blackburn. Balogun started and scored for Monaco in their 3-2 win over Strasbourg. Haji Wright, by the way, scored again for Coventry against Oxford United. A lot of people still wondering why he's not in the squad. But yeah, the Balogun-Sargent minutes are going to be interesting in these two games.
Look, if Flo Balogun had continued on the way we thought and not been derailed by the injuries, then I would be saying put Josh Sargent in and let's see if it's a different Josh Sargent than we have seen at times in the past with the national team. But it's almost as if, like we said last week, a second bite at that apple. I want to see, is Flo Balogun still the guy? And when that whistle blows, and if it's Flo Balogun up top, and the flow of the game happens, and we see what he's doing, the runs he's making, the touches that he has, obviously the chances that he's creating, and God willing, the goals that he's scoring, then you want to say, okay, I get it. I'm reminded why there was so much hype and so much excitement about that guy. Because again, it's like a new player almost coming into the team.
We joked about this at the very top, but I want to circle back to it. There's a type of U.S. fan that cannot fathom that Pochettino actually believes what he says about MLS and that he's calling these players just on his own. They're convinced there has to be something up here, something going on behind the scenes, that someone's exerting pressure on him to call up MLS players. I mean, all jokes aside, do you think there's any possibility that that's happening, or no? Pochettino gets to call whoever he wants, and there's never been any sort of pressure on any U.S. coach to call up X amount of MLS players in a given squad.
You're asking me whether the conspiracy theory, the tinfoil theory of the U.S. men's national team coach has a quota or is instructed to call in certain players relative to Major League Soccer. You think that that's the case?
I don't, but a lot of people do.
Okay, I know. Some people do. This is a little tease. I'm going to talk about Pochettino and what I gleaned from our trip to Columbus at the end of the show. However, I will say this. No, I don't think that is true by any stretch of the imagination. I understand why people say that, and I understand where it comes from. And again, it goes back to the insecurities that we have and the inferiority complex that we have. And all I will say is that Mauricio Pochettino is strangely the biggest proponent of the American player. And I do think that he believes what he says in that he doesn't care where you play. Now, ultimately, the judgment is going to happen next summer, as we said before. But I think he just likes good soccer players, and the eye test for him, I think, is very, very important. So, all right. So we'll see ultimately what he does with this lineup. Obviously, 2 different games, so he could change the lineups. I remember I wanted to say this. There are a lot of people, like I said, that were scratching their heads as to what this camp is all about. But to your point, when it comes to trying some new players, if after you could argue and disagree with Pochettino, why are you doing this? Why put that aside? But if this is about assessment, and if this is the quote last chance saloon for talent to impress themselves upon Pochettino, then there's a huge part of me that kind of would want to see that. Even though I might not agree with it or others might not agree with it, okay, fine. Then let's see it and let's use it, even though it might be a waste, but let's do it and let's use it right now. Then to your point, start some different people, start some younger people going forward. I don't know if it's going to be a mix of that or he's just saying that, but then he's going to start the best possible 11 that he has.
Also, this week, the summer transfer window slammed shut. It was a busy one for American players. And so, next order of business, we're going to go through some of the transfers involving Americans, dissect which
Window's
US
closed,
players
Mosse. The window's closed.
Correct. Yes. The first set of moves involve a U.S. player trying to extricate himself from a bad situation and go somewhere else in search of greater playing time. We're going to begin with Yunus Musah. It was an interesting summer for him because depending on the day, there were reports that he was going to stay or he was going to go. He actually started for AC Milan this past Friday, a match Christian Pulisic did not start. 2-0 away win over Lecce. Pulisic came on and scored. But then soon after that, Musah did in fact leave for Atalanta on loan with an option to buy for 25 million euros. I think this is a good move for Yunus Musah. We talked about it on our last pod. He gets to stay in Italy in Serie A. Bergamo is only an hour from Milan, so not very disruptive in terms of his personal life. Atalanta have finished 3rd and 4th in Serie A the past 2 seasons. They won the Europa League 2 seasons ago. Very well-run club that tend to get the best out of players. So I think this could be a good move for Yunus Musah.
So if we had to grade these things, are you giving that a A or I think I give it a solid B.
I would say B plus A minus.
Okay. B plus A because it serves both sides.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So that's I think that's fair. But it is a little weird to started and played. Did they think it wasn't happening or who knows?
Yeah,
but
very
he
strange.
got what he wants, and hopefully this leads to a consistent Yunus Musah playing. And as we said before, this is a guy that a couple of years ago, when we were talking about his ceiling, it was the sky is the limit for him. And it has kind of derailed over the last couple of years. So hopefully this gets him back on track.
Along those same lines, we know Gio Reyna had to get out of Dortmund. And all in all, I think things worked out for him. He moves to Borussia Mönchengladbach. So a lot of what I just said about Musah applies here. Gets to stay in Germany, play in the Bundesliga. Mönchengladbach is only about an hour and a half from Dortmund. So very simple move for him. Mönchengladbach, mid-table club last season, but they have some pedigree. He's reunited with his pal Joe Scally. So this could be a good spot for Gio. We'll see if he gets some playing time.
I give it another B, I would think. And it just bears repeating, and we've said it a number of times. This is all on Gio Reyna now. For him to step up and show the type of player he is. I don't even worry about the national team right now, Gio, and I don't think he is. But you start playing well. That's a nice little piece of depth, if you will, to possibly call upon come next summer.
Incidentally, the club that Gio was linked with for most of the summer was Parma. They missed out on Gio, but they did sign an American, Benjamin Kremaski from Inter Miami. So another American heading to Serie A.
Hey, I'm giving that an A. No, I am. I'm giving that an A because I think the type of player he is, and for those that have watched him here, and there's a ruggedness about him that I think is going to be appreciated for Parma, which we know is going to. It's not an elite team, and it also is kind of proof of concept for Major League Soccer and obviously for Inter Miami and for the player involved. So this is kind of what you want to happen. You want it going back and forth, but certainly this type of move for someone like Benjamin Kronansky, I think could be potentially life-changing.
And next up, Timmy Weah, we know, grew unhappy at Juventus. He turned down Nottingham Forest, forced to move to Marseille to go back to Ligue 1, where he had previously played for PSG and Lille. Now, the big complaint at Juventus was he never got to play as a winger. And lo and behold, this past weekend, he started for Marseille at left back in their 1-0 defeat away to Lyon. Tanner Tessman started that match for Lyon. So Timmy might just be one of these guys that these European managers, Roberto De Zerbi's the manager at Marseille, view as this jack of all trades, Jose Oquendo type, to make an obscure baseball reference. I don't know if he's going to get his wish of getting to start week in and week out as a winger, and certainly at any quality European club.
Yeah, so before I would have said this is another solid B, but now I'm looking at it as a C-ish if this is what's happening. And again, red, white, and blue color glasses, right? I'm looking at through the lens of the national team. It's what's going to be best for the U.S. men's national team. Marseille doesn't give a crap what's best for the U.S. national team. They're going to do what they're going to do. For his longevity and for his job opportunities, that you can play multiple positions, and obviously there are some good teams that value you at multiple positions. That's a good thing. But it doesn't help Pochettino. It doesn't help us from a U.S. Men's national team perspective. I don't want to watch Tim Weah play left back. That's not. Keep in mind, this is a guy that, for my money, was the most consistent, notwithstanding the red card that he had, but the most consistently viable option when it came to that right-hand side, and did things on a consistent basis from attacking perspective on that right-hand side that others didn't do in terms of how consistent he was.
Next up, a couple of players who I would say leveled up this summer, parlaying strong performances at one club and were able to go to a bigger club. First up, Johnny Cardoso went from Betis to Atletico Madrid. Has walked right into the Atletico starting lineup, started again this past weekend in their 1-1 draw away to Alaves. Actually, a lousy start to the season for Atletico Madrid as a team, but so far so good for Johnny.
And this is where it's interesting. Well, it would be interesting to hear how much communication or back and forth. And Pochettino has been pretty clear that that's not something he necessarily believes in or does when it comes to players. So it wouldn't surprise me in the least, even though we saw him watching Johnny, we saw Pochettino over there watching Johnny, but it wouldn't surprise me in the least if there's not a whole lot of communication. Because if this camp is about assessing players right now, is Johnny on the outside saying, okay, I'm good because Pochettino's famous for saying, for example, for Weston McKennie, well, I know who he is. Okay. Does Pochettino know who Johnny is? And more importantly, if he knows who he is that good enough for future camps? Again, there's only so much that he can do. From a club perspective, it's going well, but he's one of those that just has not been able to translate, and he might be on the outside looking in when it comes to next summer.
Then Malik Tillman parlayed a strong season at PSV into a move to Leverkusen, started and scored this past weekend in their 3-3 draw away to Werder Bremen. Now he's already going to have to adjust to a new manager because Leverkusen, believe it or not, sacked Erik ten Hag just 2 Bundesliga games into the campaign. I'm hearing everybody from Xavi to Ange Postecoglou. So we'll wait and see who the new manager is and what that means for Malik Tillman.
So how much influence do you think that Erik ten Hag had in Malik Tillman coming over? Because that's the question, right?
Yeah. My sense is not that much.
Okay. You think they were thinking,
yeah. I mean,
dead man walking?
He played well he played well enough at PSV that I think he was a hot player that level of club was going to want to sign anyway.
Okay, well then if that's the case, I give that an A. In terms of
I know what you're saying, though. There's a concern that if that was the hand-picked Ten Hag request,
right?
and some new manager comes in.
Oh, wait a second. this isn't good.
They also acquired this young Argentine, Claudio Echeverri, who plays more or less the same position as Tillman. So God forbid, some Argentinian walks in there and takes that job now and decides he's going to play.
Well, for now, it's an A. For now, I'm giving it an A. And it's obviously a step up. He already started off well. He can't do anything about the coach. He's playing in that position that I think he is going to absolutely vie for from a national team perspective. So knock on wood, it continues on with whoever comes in.
And then Matt Turner coming back to MLS, technically from Lyon, although he never actually played for them. So he goes from Lyon to the New England Revolution. You and I both think this is an A+.
Yes.
And although he was left out of this squad, I think long-term this will bode very well for the U.S. national team to have Matt Turner playing regularly again in MLS.
And again, I wonder if there was any communication with Matt Turner saying, hey, just do what you're doing. We're glad that you're there. We're not going to call you in this camp, but don't worry, or nothing. Because if there's no communication, then Matt Turner he's looking around, going, "Wait, aren't I the starting goalkeeper from the last World Cup?" And poof, out of my hands like that. But to your point, yes, this is an A+ going to New England, because otherwise, I think he's completely out of sight, out of mind.
Then we also had Patrick Agyemang going from Charlotte to Derby County. Damian Downs moved to Southampton. So as we've talked about, the English Championship now littered with American strikers, from Sargent to Hadji to Agyemang to Downs. But yeah, Agyemang going from Charlotte to Derby County. What do you make of that?
Yeah, and this is obviously early days. You know, when in school, when you go and meet the teachers, and yeah, they've first couple weeks have been good, and they've figured it out, and they're trending in the right direction. So my grades are where the direction is as of now. It could change dramatically as the semester continues on and midterms come up, or you're not paying attention, or you miss some homework assignments, or things that are happening there. But all of these are good. I don't think any of us look at any of these as saying, "Oh, that was a horrible move," but it could end out being a horrible move.
Sean Sullivan keeping track of your grades. I can see him marking them down in the rundown as we speak. On the topic of U.S. strikers, Doug McIntyre is at U.S. camp as we speak. He's been spending some time with Josh Sargent. He's cooking up a piece on the U.S. striker situation, so be on the lookout for that. Doug also confirmed that Uruguay will be one of the opponents in November. Remember, Stephen Goff had reported that.
That's solid. Another solid opponent. All right, so yes, check out what Dougie's doing, because he's got the inside scoop of what's happening with his team right now as we go on.
Next order of business, as we mentioned, this is an international window, so there's World Cup qualifying taking place all around the world. 13 nations have already confirmed their place at the World Cup next summer. More will be added to the list during this window. We're going to begin in CONMEBOL. Argentina, Ecuador, and Brazil have already qualified. 3 more will qualify automatically, and we know who they are. It's going to be Uruguay, Colombia, and Paraguay. I suspect all of them will book their place on Thursday. Uruguay hosts Peru. That is a 3-point banker for them. Colombia hosts Bolivia. That's a 3-point banker for them. And Paraguay hosts already qualified Ecuador, so I think they'll get the result they need. All that's going to be left to decide is whether Venezuela or Bolivia go to the Intercontinental Playoffs. Paraguay is a great story, by the way. They've been on fire. Gustavo Alfaro doing a terrific job as their manager. They're going to be a fun team to have in the United States next summer.
That's the only surprise and big story. The usual suspects are going.
Yes.
I mean, keep in mind, I know some people, lots of people know this out there, but CONMEBOL's 10 teams, right?
Yeah, and six
qualify
go
to the World Cup, and possibly 7.
Yes.
So potentially 70% of not just the elites, but of the entire confederation go to the World Cup. Now, they're wonderful teams, elite players. I get all that, but not all confederations are created equally. But it's still 70% of them go. So them going to a World Cup, and I'm not saying it is, it's cause for celebration in that there's the party that's happening, and you don't want to be left out. But you got to work really, really hard not to go to a World Cup if you're even halfway decent in CONMEBOL.
That's fair. A couple of notes on Brazil. We're taping this on Wednesday. Tomorrow, Brazil face Chile at the Maracanã. Today is the 36-year anniversary of one of the most infamous matches in South American football history. Brazil hosted Chile at the Maracanã in a World Cup qualifier for Italia 90. A Brazilian fan threw a flare on the field, and the Chilean goalkeeper Roberto Rojas pretended that the flare had hit him, feigned injury. The Chilean team stormed off, and they argued that Brazil should have to forfeit the match, which would have knocked Brazil out of the 1990 World Cup. But they investigated, saw that the flare landed nowhere near him, that he was feigning the injury. So it was Chile that forfeited the match. And they missed out on that World Cup and were banned in 94 in the United States as well.
So it was post facto VARing, basically. They had the video that they went back and figured it out.
Second Brazil note. So Brazil have already qualified. There are 2 games in this window. Their last 2 qualifiers are home to Chile and then away to Bolivia in the altitude of La Paz, which is a game you can't glean anything from. Vinicius Jr. suspended for the Chile match due to yellow card accumulation, so it made absolutely no sense to bring him in this window. The Brazilian media reported ahead of the call-up that Ancelotti wasn't going to select him, and that was the reason why. Nobody batted an eye when he was on the list. Ancelotti wasn't asked a single question about it in the press conference, and yet ESPN FC still did this whole segment. They lumped Vinicius in with Neymar. Vinicius and Neymar left out. What does that signal for Brazil? Alejandro Moreno and Herculez Gomez kicked it around for a few minutes. We're not perfect. We had that Rodrigo de Paul mix-up recently, but that was not a great moment for the worldwide leader. So that's why Vinicius was left out of the squad. There's nothing to read into that.
And they already qualified.
Yes.
I mean, all right. So, jeez. All right. Should we move on to what should we go to? CAF?
We go to Africa. The way it works there, the nations are divided into 9 different groups. The 9 group winners qualify automatically, and then the 4 best runners-up play in a mini playoff to determine which team goes to the intercontinental playoffs. Morocco are in great shape to qualify.
Bring it on.
Egypt and Mosse as well. The likes of Algeria, Ghana, South Africa, all in first place in their respective groups. Morocco, though, semifinalists at the last World Cup, bronze medal at the Olympics. That's going to be, assuming they qualify, one of the big talking points in 26. What can they do for an encore after that tremendous run in 22?
Yeah, the World Cup is better with Morocco in it, and it looks like that we're going to have it, so bring it on. The World Cup, I think, is better with Egypt, and looks like we're going to have that, right? You mentioned South Africa. They're leading. They got their 13 points. Is that right? My goodness, that would be something. I'd love to see something like that.
You were there in 2010 for that World Cup.
Yes, I remember it. And I remember how excited South Africa was, not just to host, but obviously to see their team in that type of environment. So it'd be wonderful to have. And, part of the expansion of the World Cup is to see teams that either haven't been there before or have been there very limited amount of times get more of an opportunity to show up. So we'll keep an eye on all that. But obviously we want teams that have a penchant for entertaining us. We also want players. And when you're talking about Morocco and Egypt, there's some players that we would like to see.
Next up, CONCACAF. We begin the final round of qualifying. 12 teams divided into 3 groups of 4. The 3 group winners will qualify for the World Cup, and the 2 best runners-up will go to the intercontinental playoffs. We talked a lot about this during the Gold Cup. We framed it as if some of these teams were looking to build momentum towards World Cup qualifying. So here we are. I'll read you the groups, and you tell me who you think will top each one. Group A, El Salvador, Guatemala, Panama, and Suriname.
Panama.
Although Guatemala, frisky at the Gold Cup, had a nice run.
Yep.
Group B, Bermuda, Curacao, Jamaica, and Trinidad and Tobago. Talent-wise, it should be Jamaica, but what a mess.
We saw that. I mean, I'm going right back to the Jamaica well, all right? And I'm hoping that it's not empty. Hope it's got a little bit of Jamaican rum left to go. So, yeah, all right, please, don't embarrass me, Jamaica. I'm still going with you. So, yes, Jamaica coming out.
And then Group C, Costa Rica, Haiti, Honduras, and Nicaragua.
Costa Rica.
Miguel Herrera gets him over the line.
What you disagree with any of those 3?
No, Panama, Jamaica, Costa Rica. I'd buy that.
Okay, all right. And then as you mentioned, the best 2 second place teams get an opportunity to go. But so that would be 3 plus another 2, so that's a potential of 5 of the 41 that CONCACAF has. I know this one we're hosting, so it's another 3, but 41. I don't know what the percentage is. That possibly 5 of the 41 teams get to go.
So you want more CONCACAF?
I'm saying, when 70% of your entire confederation goes to the freaking World Cup, it's a little strange.
And then UEFA, it's early days there, but so nobody's going to qualify in this window. But we do have a triple header on FS1 on Sunday. We're excited about Georgia, Bulgaria, Lithuania, Netherlands, Germany, Northern Ireland. Another game in Europe that caught my attention this window, Slovenia will host Sweden. The reason I bring that up is those 2 countries feature 3 strikers who are among the marquee signings in the Premier League this summer. With Sweden, you have Alexander Isak, who did get his move from Newcastle to Liverpool for a British transfer record, £125 million. You also have Victor Gyökeres, who moved from Sporting to Arsenal. And then on the Slovenia side, you have Benjamin Šeško, who moved from Leipzig to Manchester United. And we should talk about the transfer window as a whole, because the big story was the Premier League's spending. It was absolutely bonkers. More than $4 billion in total, more than all the other top leagues in Europe combined. Spending had been down in the Premier League for a couple of years there, which made people think, oh, financial fair play is having an effect. But then it spiked up again this summer. So now the narrative is that it just took a couple of years for clubs to figure out ways to work around financial fair play and all the loopholes. So here we are again with talk that the Premier League is in fact a super league, and they're just in their own world when it comes to spending.
Yeah, well, why would I complain about that? I love when people spend money. When it's not mine, it's great, and I love to tell them how to spend their money, and that's what the Premier League has been built around. So that they are doing it, I think, is a good thing. Ultimately, players make more money, so I'm never going to be angry about that. And that's what I want to see. I want to see money that's going to buy the best players. Now I know it's inflated, but that's just part of doing business. But there's plenty of other teams, European teams, that have to go through qualifying this fall. But this is just what you're putting on what in terms of the actual players, because we know. Can you imagine, Mosse, if in this moment where there's an expanded World Cup, because there's some great players that have never been able to play in a World Cup. We're not cheated out of them, but it'd be nice to see them there. If in this expanded field they still don't get to the World Cup, then they've either really screwed up or they just play for a team that just has really no chance of going.
Although Europe is the one region where the calculus hasn't changed that much. It's only up to 16 spots. It's not that much more than previously got into World Cups. And we know why that is, because Gianni Infantino already had the votes from Europe. This expanded World Cup thing was all about currying votes with other regions around the world. We're still going to see some big teams and some big players miss out on the world, even a 48-team World Cup.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll look for all of those games. Anything else, Mosse?
That is it.
Okay. Well, that was a nice, long, beefy segment, as you said. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll have some Ask Alexi. Okay, welcome back. It's time for Ask Alexi, that part of the show where you send in your comments, questions, and concerns. Keep in mind that our hashtag out there on the old social media handles is Ask Alexi, and our social media handle is SOTU with Alexi. Or you can call into our State of the Union podcast hotline, which is 657-549-2297. That's 657-549-2297. Mosse, what do the folks want to know today?
First up, at Ryan Jones 7 on X asks, MLS still hasn't addressed the spitting or fighting. Will they today? What he's alluding to is, of course, the Leagues Cup final. Seattle hammered Inter Miami 3-0 on goals by Di Rosario, Alex Roldan, and Rothrock. Ugly scenes at the end. Inter Miami did not take the loss well. Busquets, Suarez, and company went after Seattle players and staff. Busquets punched a Seattle player. Suarez spat at a Seattle staff member. So now everybody's wondering what kind of punishment they're going to receive.
All right. So there was, disgraceful and shameful actions after that game all over the field. I know there's people that would talk about this game and would be miffed that we're not starting it with the congratulations for the Seattle Sounders. But the reality is that what Inter Miami has turned into means that they, or the actions that they are involved in, become the story. So I am going to start it with the spitting. I've said this before whenever this happens. Spitting is a vile and despicable and disrespectful act in any context, but certainly here on the field or after the game on the field. I would rather that you punch me in the face than spit on me or at me, which I know some of you would probably love to do. But that's how disgusting I view the act. There will be punishment, and there should be punishment. The reason why this is a story is because of the actual acts. spitting and punching, but also that it involves Inter Miami. Inter Miami has become, by design, a super club within MLS for what they do, the big, bold, brash way in which they do it. And by the way, it's awesome. I love that they are leaning into being that big, bold entity in MLS. The money that they spend, the players that they have, and yes, their behavior. What is a problem, in one sense, is that there is, I think, from the rest of the league, a sense that there is an entitlement from these players and that they are doing things that they wouldn't otherwise do, but specifically because it is Major League Soccer. And that's a problem. And that is the ultimate form of disrespect for the league and for the sport and for, I guess, even the country in which you are a guest in and playing in and making a tremendous amount of money in. So we are recording here on Wednesday. Nothing has yet happened. There have been no punishments laid out, but we've seen in the past, whether it's a Clint Dempsey or other spitting incidents where it has been multiple games, even though they are other tournaments and tournaments apart. This was a tournament that is organized by Major League Soccer and Liga MX. And while it doesn't have any bearing necessarily on MLS games, there can still be punishment handed out, and the commissioner has the right in the CBA to do that kind of stuff. And I would expect that to happen. But they're going to take their time, and eventually this is going to come to fruition. I want Luis Suárez on my team. I know he drives people crazy. I know it is, like I said, disgusting what he did, but there is a practical side of me that wants a great goal scorer there, and I'll deal with all the other crap. And there's plenty of other crap that comes with him. All right, so that's the situation after the game and the behavior. Congratulations to Seattle, because not only did they win and did they get to raise a trophy, but they did it in a way that warmed the cockles of my old guy MLS heart. Congratulations to the Sounders. Congratulations to Brian Schmetzer and to this group that is just littered with homegrown players. That this group that, while there are stars, certainly not at the level of Inter Miami. And there was an element of an old school MLS philosophy against a new school MLS philosophy in the form of Inter Miami. And that the old school not only won, but rolled over them with arguably the greatest player ever to play the game on the field and against an Inter Miami team that we know is elite in MLS and gets all of that attention. Kudos have to go to Seattle and the Seattle faithful. 70,000 up there. I know a lot of them were Messi fans, not necessarily Inter Miami fans, but Messi fans up there. But they brought it on the field, they brought it off the field, and they deserve all of the kudos that they are getting right now.
Another feather in the cap of that organization. Remember, they are still the only MLS team to win the modern iteration of the CONCACAF Champions Cup, and they now win the Leagues Cup as well. I agree with you. I mean, there's an argument to be made that they are the preeminent soccer franchise.
Yeah, there was I think they stated that they are the team that has won every championship. Seattle has won every championship, but that's a little disrespectful to the Super League. I don't know if you remember the Super League that happened many, many years ago that New England won and others were in. But that trophy chest and the success of obviously the late great Ziggy Schmidt and then the transition into Brian Schmetzer, they've done incredible things on and off the field and deserve them a tremendous amount of credit. They had a moment where you could turn in your pink Inter Miami shirt before the game and they'd give you a Rothrock jersey in return. Guy ended up scoring. So it all went perfectly for Seattle on the field during the game. Post-game stuff, like I said, that's going to be the big news because it involves Messi's team and because it involves these big names. But ultimately, many, many years from now, all they're going to remember is you were the champions. So congratulations to Seattle.
I'm going to disagree with one thing you said.
That?
If it's Mike Tyson, I'd rather he spit on me than punch me.
Okay. I guess it would be on the field, right? And I'm on the field, I'm okay. I'll figure out a way to get away from Mike. All right, what else you got?
Next up on X, Johnny Hibbard. I'm not quite sure what the context was here. Perhaps you can enlighten us, but he merely said being conflicted about going to the U.S. if Wales qualify.
Yeah, I only wanted to put this in because, every morning over there on the X machine, I ask, what are we yelling about? And Johnny Hibbard was one of the guys that responded. And like you said, he is conflicted. And the reason why I thought this was interesting is because he is from Wales. And he, like a lot of these supporters that exist around the world, are looking at all the qualifying games that you talked about and seeing who is qualifying and potentially planning a trip around the World Cup, a vacation to what I feel is the greatest country in the world here in the United States, obviously in Canada and Mexico as our joint hosts, come next summer. And that Johnny here is being put off by things that he sees. Okay, I can respect that in that, I can't tell you what to think. And if that is your perception right now, then obviously it's poor from an American perspective in terms of what we have going out there, but I guess we have no one to blame but ourselves. Having said that, I just want to remind Johnny and others out there that millions of fans and supporters attended World Cups since, let's go back to 2010, South Africa, Brazil, Russia, Qatar. And people went, you provided your information, and I've done all of those mechanisms in order to provide the information, and you have to give all of your numbers and your names and your, like I said, the data and your passport and your license and all this kind of stuff. You provide your information. You are vetted by each and every one of those countries, as you will be vetted by the United States and Canada and Mexico, to make sure that there are no security concerns. You enter legally, and you're a guest, and you are our guest. And we want to make sure you have the best possible time so that you take back that message. We don't want you breaking laws, just like any country out there. And when that all happens and you arrive here next summer, I'm telling you, you're going to have fun. You are going to have a blast. Don't let things that you are reading about dissuade you from coming. Obviously, you have to do it in the right way. And if and when you do and you arrive, I think you're just going to have the time of your life. And it's going to be framed around the World Cup, but ultimately from maybe a U.S. perspective, we want, whether it's Johnny or anybody else, not only to take that trip, but to have such a good time that he takes that message home. Ultimately, that's going to be what's good for us. So don't you worry, Johnny. You're going to have a blast. Now, listen, we'll still have to qualify, but even if they don't, come on over and you'll still have a good time.
Although, Johnny, if you do come, you might go home bankrupt because FIFA has announced they are going to use dynamic ticket pricing, which for those that don't know, it means the pricing is fluid. You might think you're paying a certain amount for a game, but then if the demand for tickets is higher than FIFA anticipated, they will jack up the prices on you. So a lot of people unhappy about that. Evidently, dynamic ticket pricing was used in the most recent Oasis tour,
Yes.
and fans were unhappy about that. So now it's going to come to the World Cup for the first time.
Well, before they start moving, right now, and the news came out today about that dynamic ticket pricing, the cheapest group stage seats right now are starting at $60, and evidently the most expensive tickets are to the final starting at $6,730. But like we said, they are dynamic, so they can change relative to demand. So we'll see how all that goes down from a business perspective for the World Cup. Anything else, Mosse?
That is it.
All right, another quick break. We come back, we'll finish it up with my One for the Road.
Ready for this?
Ready.
Buckeyes, you ready?
Vamos. Come on.
Yes.
1, 2, 3. Oh,
Give it one more time, coach.
Oh,
One more.
Whoa, well done.
There we go.
Thank you.
Coach. You got it.
All right. Welcome back. It is the end of our show, and at the end of each and every show, I give you my One for the Road. And as you saw and heard, I was in Columbus, Ohio for the big Ohio State versus Texas game alongside, as you saw, Mauricio Pochettino and all of our friends over there at Big Noon, where we made an appearance. Had such a wonderful time in Columbus. Columbus has an incredible history when it comes to soccer. I think back to playing in the horseshoe, Mosse. That's what they call it, the shoe over there, the stadium. And that's actually where when MLS kicked off back in 1996, that's where we played against the Columbus Crew. And so I was running around the likes of Brian McBride trying to stop him, and Dr. Kamalo, and these types of players. So long history when it comes to soccer in Columbus, not just with the Columbus Crew, but also with the U.S. men's national team, and so many wonderful games and results there. So, as I said on air when we were on Big Noon there with Pochettino and Rob Stone and Mark Ingram there, Columbus is through and through a soccer town, obviously a football town, but also an incredible supporter of big events. And this certainly was a big event. I cannot think of ever going to a college game. So I started kind of on top. I know the big house is a big deal, and that's my next order of business, is to get to your Ann Arbor, because I also have never been there to see a game there. It was wonderful. I think it was good for Mauricio Pochettino to be there and to kind of see what college football is, because I think it's very different, please correct me if I'm wrong, than what an experience is at a NFL game, for example. And the tribalism that exists, also for him to see the facilities that exist and the infrastructure when it comes to American football and collegiate American football. I thought, what we were talking, because we not only appeared on air together on Big Noon, but we also did a speech, if you will, myself, our boss Eric Shanks, and Mauricio Pochettino. You can see a picture right there, which was great, hosted by the great Jenny Taft. And I didn't glean a whole lot more about Mauricio Pochettino other than he's a really, really nice guy. And maybe most importantly, he believes in himself. And he believes that he is heading in the right and the positive direction. I know he's got a lot of naysayers, and he's got a lot of people that are scratching their head, like I said right now. But I truly believe that he believes it. And I want somebody to believe in what they are doing. If I took anything out of our conversations and our time there, it was that he will fall on the personality and the character and the identity of players and of a team more so than the X's and O's and the tacticals and the lineups and all that. And I think he truly believes that he is building a special group of players that can succeed and withstand that World Cup that is coming next summer. Now, again, he's a coach that's never done this before in terms of coaching an international team, let alone at a World Cup. So we'll see if it all comes to fruition. But you can't not help liking him. Still doesn't speak great English. And I still think there's a part of him that is getting to know everything about not just American soccer, but about America, and digesting all of that. And ultimately, as we said time and time again, he's going to be judged next summer. But until then, he got a healthy dose of Ohio State and college football. Had a wonderful time hanging out with him. Obviously, my friend Rob Stone. We had dinner the night before with our new colleague, Dave Portnoy, and his bar stool that is coming with us. Really, really interesting dude. And I thought he did a really good job the next day in his first time on the air with us. So we welcome him in. But it was just a fun time in Columbus, especially for someone like me who's never experienced what a game like that. I was right next to the Ohio State band and all the different hoopla and the festivities and the traditions and the rituals and all that kind of stuff. It was fun, and ultimately, Ohio State won.
College football, I've always said this, is the American sport that most resembles European and South American soccer in terms of the fan culture and the atmosphere and all that. And the U.S., of course, will play Japan in Columbus, Ohio in the second game of this window. I have to ask, were you impressed with Matt Patricia's game plan to shut down Archie Manning?
Yeah, so everyone kept telling me, because I would ask everybody about this Archie guy. And yeah, some people hedged their bets and stuff, but a lot of people said, no, he's the real deal, and he's been brought up the right way, and he didn't, go into the portals, and didn't, when he wasn't starting, he stuck it out and did all that kind of stuff. And so now, the novice that I am, I'm looking on the field, and this guy's throwing balls into the ground and throwing guys all over the place. So, what did you guys? What did you sell me here when it came to this? Oh, I should also say, speaking of our wonderful crew that we have behind the scenes, there was a Joel Klatt live when it comes to our digital library that have, if you will. They did a live Joel Klatt podcast from the amphitheater there at Ohio State, and they just did an incredible job. They were nice enough to invite me, and the organization, I know behind the scenes, was something else, but ultimately it looked great. It had been raining earlier than day. It stopped raining, so they got a perfect night for it. Hundreds of people in this outdoor venue, and it was really, really cool to see, not just the spectacle, but that so many men and women that we know that does such a good job here when it comes to our digital were behind that spectacle. So congratulations to all of them. It went off great.
I would have a hard time seeing Kat working on a different podcast. It would feel like she's cheating on.
Yeah,
me.
it was a little weird, but we're gonna get over it. We got to figure out a way to start doing some live shows. We got to figure out a way to get out there in the public and do some stuff from the road. Obviously, with the World Cup coming, I think there's some possibilities going forward. So that's our goal over this next 200 and however many days we are, 290 days ish that we.
Last thing, only because you mentioned Archie Manning,
Yes.
Nepo baby. I neglected to mention this at the top. I'm actually reading an excellent book, biography of John Quincy Adams, who was the 6th president of the United States, and obviously the son of John Adams, the 2nd president of the United States. So he had to fight that throughout his career, that he was only getting these prestigious appointments because of who his dad was. I know you did a whole spiel on nepotism recently on the pod, so it's not just in sports and politics too.
Yeah. I mean, it happens, but look, you take the doors that are opened where you get them. They're not going to stay open forever, and then you got to prove it ultimately. So whether it's on the field, especially on the field, maybe where you can't hide. All right, your daddy's not going to save you on the field, and your name's not going to save you on the field. So got to complete some more passes. And I think he will. All right. Anything else?
That's it.
All right. Keep downloading and reviewing and rating and subscribing and doing all the different things that you do out there. We love you so much. I'm so excited to be back here with this crew back in the studio. Keep smashing that button up and down, left and right, up and down over there on the old YouTube thing, and subscribe and smash it and do all the things that you do. We'll talk to you again this weekend. All right. Live show this Saturday following the U.S.-South Korea game. Be there. It's going to be awesome, and we will dive into what we saw on the field when it comes to this version of the U.S. men's national team. Until then, and as always, my friends, size the day.